What's that, Brittany?
Oh, yeah.
Just
We're
making
live.
sure
Okay. Thanks, Jen. All right. We'll call the meeting to order at 8:03. And we did switch up the agenda a little bit to start with some items for approval. And I think that's contingent on the legal counsel joining us. So I'll start out with the mission statement just for Goggin. And Lewis County Economic Development, through its board, the IDA, and its brand, Naturally Lewis, are championing the growth of a community where people want to live, work, build business, and play. We foster forward thinking and relationship building, connecting people, businesses, partnerships, and resources to effectively and efficiently grow our county. So did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting that were sent out? Any comments? Motion to approve,
I'll make a motion to approve those.
Darlene. Second. Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
January financial reports were also shared.
Yes, and these were reviewed at the Finance Committee. But if you want to start with the profit and loss, it's the first one in your packet. I highlighted operating grant revenue. That was that $350,000 grant we got for the Lions Falls project that we received in December. And then we paid off our expenses related to that project, and we paid the remaining $88,000 out to the LCDC in January. So that looks bad, but it's not. We net at zero there. A lot of pilot activity going on, billing the pilots out and then receiving the money back into the IDA and then distributing that to the taxing entities. So there's going to be a lot of activity on that pilot payments pass-through line. That starts to level out in March, when most of the pilots are heavy in January, February, March. Scrolling down, I have under expenses, I've got highlighted the economic development expense. That's a little high for this month. That's just kind of related to, I'm losing my notes here. That was some expenses we incurred. What's that, Brett?
Snowmobile study?
Yeah, that was for the snowmobile study, was what drove that up. The reimbursements we've got from the other partners on that project are coming in. So overall, that won't be a huge expense for us. Any questions on the profit and loss? The profit and loss. All right, we'll move on to the balance sheet. And Goggin, I will get the commas in here for next month, I promise.
Thank you.
These are huge numbers, again, driven by the pilots. 4 million of that checking and savings line was Flat Rock Wind being paid in. We also had Roaring Brook and Flat Rock IDA fees filtering through there, as well as Copenhagen Wind was another 688,000 coming in to our checking savings account. And then you see it go through accounts receivable and then being paid out when accounts payable. We pay those out pretty quickly, so they don't sit there very long. Other current assets goes up because of the way we're billing them out. So when we invoice them and then receive them in, you'll see those lines fluctuate, and again, they level out again in about March. Any questions on the balance sheet? All right. The Finance Committee also had the monthly expenditures, which they review each month, and we included that in this packet as well.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Any other questions related to the financials? I have a motion to approve.
Sure.
Goggin, a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Motion carries. All right, so Brittany, I don't know what you want to tackle next, if we want to wait for.
I think we can get started. So with these US Light Lava projects, or Solitude Solar is actually the applicant. We received 2 applications for 2 separate solar array projects. Cheyenne has put together some slides to show all of you how we are putting our new UTEP into play. So all of the solar language and the criteria that we put in over the summer, we're actually utilizing that to figure out what the pilot payment per megawatt will be for these projects. And it's a really interesting process. So Cheyenne's going to talk about that new UTEP process we've implemented. We're going to review the 2 applications and cost benefit analysis. And then we have 2 public hearing resolutions. It's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but this is just the process that Hodgson Russ uses. Essentially the same thing as an inducement resolution. We're just calling it different. Just a resolution to set a public hearing to receive comment to consider providing benefits for these projects. So Shai, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, and I guess I'll start by saying it is so nice to be more and more organized with these pilot projects. And I appreciate all the work that the board and Brittany did over the summer to nail down that UTEP while I was mostly off the cuff on leave. We're definitely going in a great direction. So Jenna, can you hit the next slide for me? All right, so in the application packet, you got, this is Waters Road A I'm using as an example to show you this process we walked through with this project. This is the map of the solar array, their project A that they provided in their packet. This is what we got directly from the developer. And using that, we took it to the GIS, which everybody in the county has access to. You can log on to the Lewis County website and use the GIS. And next slide, Jenna. I outlined the array on that. Sent that over to Lewis County Soil and Water. Next one, Jenna. And they did this. This stuff is incredible to me. The detail with which they know the soil types and just the data they have access to is incredible. So this is the map that they came up with of soil types. Next slide, Jenna. And they broke it down into this table. You see the soil symbol, soil name, slope. And then I've highlighted the description area. So these were the categories we asked them to break it down into for us. Prime farmland, statewide importance, not prime, and prime if drained. So they gave us that, the number of acres of each, and then they broke it down into what percentage of the parcel each of those was. So then we could sum those up because obviously there's a couple rows of prime farmland. There's a couple rows of statewide importance. Jenna, next one. We took that data they provided us along with our UTEP, and this is just the solar language pulled out of that, where we talk about how we start at $5,500 per megawatt and the criteria that will cause a reduction in that. So if it's not actively farmed land, they can get a 10% reduction. If it's not prime, they can get 5, 10, 15% reduction based on what kind of a land it actually is. So next slide. So we took the soil and water data and that information. We started with the base pilot amount and then used the percentages for this array in the first column there, calculated using the UTEP discount in the second column to calculate the total discount for this array, which ended up being 7.4%. So you weight the discount by the proportion of the lot that had each type of soil. And we come up with the highlighted number down here of $5,095 for the pilot amount. Taking that number, we can go to the next slide and do the cost benefit. And you've got this in your packet, so I didn't try to cram the whole thing on this page. But that's what we use to feed into the cost and benefit analysis, as well as the next slide. Should we approve this? This is, I think, a spreadsheet you're familiar with seeing, most of us at least. We pop that in the allocation spreadsheet, the term sheet basically, and we get the total pilot amount as well as the breakdown for the taxing jurisdictions. And I think that was my last slide, right, Jenna? Yeah. So it looks like a lot, but it's actually such a clean process that we've gotten to. And I think it's, I enjoy the process, and I enjoy the clarity and the concreteness of how we're doing this now. Any questions?
I just think it's awesome. And it's, it's also great to see how we can utilize, like we're utilizing all our partners and the resources, right, with the county and soil and water and stuff. And we're able to make it, the clarity and the level of detail that we can get by making it a county-wide effort, and not just something that we're trying to tackle on our own.
Yeah, and Soil and Water was an excellent partner in this, and I'm glad we won't have to feed them 50 of these a year, because she said it took about 45 minutes. So I think we can probably streamline the outlining of the array a little bit for them. But they were an awesome partner for what they provided us, and quickly too. All right, that's all I've got on that.
I see Chris is on now, and I mean, if there's any other questions on what Cheyenne presented, and Brittany, if you want to move into the next part.
All right, so we provided to you yesterday, Jenna sent two separate packets for the two separate applications. We did review these applications and cost benefit analysis at Finance Committee. So if Tom or Goggin, Mackenzie, who were at the Finance Committee meeting, if you guys want to say anything, it was recommended that these applications be brought to the board. And Cheyenne, I don't know if you want to just do a run through of, what the two projects are, the megawatt and both pilots that we are proposing, terms, things like that.
Yep. So
We had.
Go ahead, Tom.
This is Tom. We had some questions and reservations on some of the things, and Mackenzie had some questions on it, but basically we felt that we should go forward with approving these two after a fair amount of discussion, and there was a person from Light Energy that was Mark, I believe it was, that was on the line with us, and apologize for not getting them in quite as soon as they should have. But anyway, we felt that we should move forward with approving these two.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so kind of a high level overview of these projects. They are, and I said this at the finance committee, but I want to reiterate, these projects are located on my brother-in-law's farm on the Waters Road. It's all on the same lot, but the lot is split by the Waters Road. So you have a 5 megawatt parcel, the one I was showing you in the slides there. A 5 megawatt parcel is project A, and then you've got a 2 megawatt parcel across the street closer to the road, that's project B. And so it's 7 megawatts total, but they're coming through as 2 separate projects, even though they're on adjacent pieces of land. Nothing really jumping out too much in the applications as too noteworthy. The utilization of land, like you said, or like you saw in that quick overview I did on the slides, it actually wasn't as much prime farmland as I may have guessed, but it is prime or farmland that was being farmed, so that's a consideration. And that, I mean, obviously that was taken into consideration in the pilot amount. You do have a pretty good narrative of the project in that packet. We decided it was page 17, in case you haven't had a chance to read that. These projects have been, there's been some groundwork already done on these projects, which is where our hesitation was in making sure that their analysis and whatnot lined up timeline wise with the application. But I think we are on a track to approve them without any hiccups. They've gone through the Level site plan approval process. Actually, the town of Level worked very well, or at least they got to the point they needed to on these projects in terms of allowing the solar use in that zone. So that was a process in itself for the developer and the landowner, but they got there.
And just as far as process goes, in our process, we're at the point right now where on our pilot process flow chart, like I said, it would typically be called an inducement resolution, but in this case, we're calling it a public hearing resolution, essentially same thing, just different name, to set the public hearing. Have a date set for the town of Lowell offices. You can attend it in person or virtually, I think March 22nd, right, Shai?
Yep, we've got it. We've got the room reserved for March 22nd at 1 p.m. Obviously, that's contingent on the resolution passing today.
Yep. And then any public comment that's received at that point, we will review at our next board meeting. And then we have the opportunity to approve these projects, approve consent for these projects.
Oh, I did want to, for the full board on the cost benefit, these solar projects never look good on our typical cost benefit. And Joe's made the comment in the past that because these projects are coming through, and kind of the part you can't put into numbers is the fact that New York State is asking that this happen. They never show a benefit in terms of dollars and cents, and because they don't bring a lot of employment, that doesn't really help the cost benefit analysis. And we do need to work on, as Joe's kind of asked in the past, an analysis that shows the contribution to the economy above the current use or comparatively to a building or a manufacturing facility going on that same lot. And that's something we'll look to do in the future in the cost benefit. So we can, just look at it a few different ways.
I have a question just for clarification purposes, and I apologize because I am definitely still learning with this process, but on page 8 of each of the applications, the land acquisition acres is at 251.8, but in your the presentation that you provided, seemed like it was, if I understood it correctly, it was significantly less. Is it the acquisition, the total acreage that will have the array on it?
Yeah, that 251.8 is the whole parcel.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt you, Shai. So the idea, this is Chris Canada, good morning, everybody. The idea is, the IDA takes a portion of the overall parcel. They get a leasehold interest in the smaller number, and the leasehold interest allows the pilot to be processed. In other words, the IDA needs some type of interest in the property. So instead of getting the interest in the whole entire piece of property, they get what we'll call the postage stamp, just that one portion where the solar sit. So if it's just for the sake of numbers, if it's a 100-acre parcel and it's only 20 acres on which the solar facility would be located, it's just on that 20 acres. But the idea would have an interest in.
Thank you.
That's a good point, though, Darlene.
Yeah, absolutely.
I should ask that they update that on their application to be more clear on the usage.
Alright, so any other questions or? So again, this isn't approving the project, right? We're still a
Right.
step away from that. It's approving to move forward to a public hearing for both projects, which I believe will require a roll call vote. But I just wanted to make sure, I mean, I think everyone is familiar with the process now, but this isn't, this vote isn't to actually, it's moving forward with the next step, it's not the final step. So.
Right.
So anything else?
If you're ready for a motion, I would so move.
Yeah, so we'll start with, we're defining these as A and B, correct, Cheyenne?
Correct. Waters Road A and Waters Road B.
All right, so Tom, do you want to make that motion for project
Okay,
A?
okay, yes, I will make that for project A.
Okay, do we have a second? No one wants to second.
I'll second.
Mackenzie, okay. Any discussion for the record? All right, so we'll need a roll call vote, so I'll just go on my screen here. Darlene?
Aye.
Mackenzie?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes,
Goggin? Goggin's muted.
Yes, sorry.
Joe is a yes, and Jerry and Ron are excused. Okay, so now we would need the same for Waters Road Project B.
Yes.
Sorry, we need a motion. Do you want to make the motion, Darlene?
Sure.
Okay, motion made by Darlene, a second.
second,
Tom, thank you. Any discussion? All right, we'll go through Darlene,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Tom,
yes,
Goggin,
Yes.
Joe is a yes, and Ron and Jerry are excused. All right, thank you. So just to, I think it's the 22nd at 1 p.m. Is that what we said will be the dates for this?
Correct. And I'll copy you on the actual public hearing notice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Brittany, where are we going from here?
Yep, so I'm wondering, since we have Chris on the line, do we want to maybe continue with US Light discussion with updates on the recapture process and the Martinsburg projects? And then we can let Chris go?
Sounds good.
Sure. So I have letters for both of those projects in terms of recapture. I wanted to confirm, I know we have the ST60s, but I wanted to confirm exactly how much was authorized in terms of sales tax by the IDA before sending those out. But just to step back a minute, the general municipal law requires that any recapture for a project applicant for an IDA has to be captured by the IDA. So the company sends the money to the IDA via check, and then the IDA then has to remit that to the state. It's kind of an annoying feature that shouldn't, the state just can't get the money from the company. So, but it does under the general municipal law have to go through the IDA. So I would say we'll send letters from our firm on behalf of the IDA to the company, nice letters, but just saying, you know, this is what you were authorized to receive in sales tax exemption. This is how much you reported in sales tax exemption. On one of them, it was just over $2,000, and the other one was over $25,000. So we've had different reactions from companies when we ask for this. Some of them get pissed. Some of them say, of course, we know this is part of the process, but we will go through that process. We do it a lot, unfortunately, and report back to the IDA. But usually it's a few discussions with company counsel in terms of why do we have to pay this? What's the story? But we'll keep everybody abreast of that. It's just on those two projects though so far.
Yep, on the Denmark and Turin projects.
Yeah.
Any questions on recapture?
Yes, we just talking about Martinsburg or Denmark and Turin?
Denmark and Turin.
Yep, Denmark and Turin.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
these projects are the only ones that we've approved. Oh, well, through this company are the only ones that had an approved sales tax exemption. And as it was indicated, when we approve a sales tax exemption, it has a cap on it based on the estimate the company gives us of their project cost. So that's what we use when we approve these, and then when they exceed that number is when it becomes a problem because they've used the exemption beyond what we approved.
Right.
So.
Just to play that out a little bit, I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe. The best case scenario, if a company thinks they're going to go over their authorized sales tax exemption, would be to notify the IDA in advance, because there's nothing stopping an IDA from authorizing an additional amount of sales tax exemption. So if it goes over $100,000 in new exemption, you have to do a new public hearing, but it's a better scenario for the company if they come to the IDA early and say, hey, we're buying X number of products for our facility. It's going to go over what was authorized. Can we get a new exemption? And, you know, it's up to the IDA, not me, if they want to authorize that. But oftentimes our IDA clients do go through that process, and it's a lot less painful than telling the company down the road, hey, you know, you've gone over, we have to recapture. So just something to think about going forward.
Yeah, and for those of you who have been on the board for long enough, we did have kind of a similar situation with one of the wind projects probably 2 years ago, where they didn't go over, but they needed more time to use their sales tax exemption. It was the time frame had run out for them, or was going to run out, so they requested an extension, and we went through that similar process.
Good point.
All right, thank you for that update. If there's nothing else there, we can move on to the Martinsburg projects.
Okay, so as you are all aware, there are two Martinsburg projects that are currently in construction. And we did receive from US Light the percentage in which the project is complete. And definitely over halfway complete for both the Glendale Road project and the Flat Rock Road project. So we've been working with Chris and Joe at Hodgson Russ to figure out what is the best way that we should go about this. We did receive a letter of support from the town of Martinsburg. They would like to see these projects go forward. They're willing to work with us and the company to make sure that these projects are completed. So in that case, Chris, do you want to give an update on just some of the things that we discussed at our last meeting and provide the board with an update on how we should move forward?
Sure. So then I'm going to make sure we got a lot of projects going on. This one relates to whether or not we should move forward with providing the pilots for these projects. And our thought was if we could be provided pro formas for the projects, that would show us that, you know, although they didn't come in with an application like they should have, you know, they envisioned going forward with these projects all along as provided in the pro formas. And looking at those, it looks like that's the case. So we obviously want to make the decision. It's up to you. It's not up to us. We could go either way on this, but if the board's feeling is that these projects should go forward, even though they didn't follow the usual procedure, we think we can get there in terms of putting the facts together and building a case for it. So it's not ideal, but we think with the pro formas they provided, the IDA is comfortable with it. We're comfortable with those projects moving forward.
So just to reiterate, you know, this is a issue where, you know, our ability and you know, authority to give a pilot or some sort of reduction is based on the idea that that is needed for a project to move forward. And it makes it, you know, so, you know, essentially if the project's already being built without that approval, it raises the question of, did this truly need to happen? Do they need this exemption to actually complete the project when they've started it without it? And, you know, so that's where Chris's comments about the pro formas come in, is, you know, really the request was, where's your documentation that when you analyze the financials of these projects, you were analyzing those financials and justifying the projects based on the idea of having the pilot in place. And that's where, you know, that's where we requested from them as much documentation as they could provide of showing the history of the project and how, you know, where those assumptions were made in the finances, and you know, the acknowledgement that there was a mistake on their part in not getting the applications in when they were supposed to. So
Just for clarity on these, they are requesting sales tax exemption as well. That's not something we can grant retroactively. We can't, I mean, we could say from the approval point forward.
Right.
They have the sales tax exemption on whatever they purchase in that time frame, but we can't say anything you've purchased prior to that approval is covered by that sales tax exemption.
That's right. And the ABO would be all over that if you did.
Right.
That's low hanging fruit for the ABO.
and this is an opportunity to think, you know, we've had these discussions in the past. Oftentimes, while they take separate votes, the pilot and the sales tax exemption are oftentimes discussed kind of one and the same. I mean, we do vote on them separately, but they, you know, they kind of get rolled in together often. And we've had these discussions in the past about separating those more in a normal project, not in a, you know, in a unique situation like this, but even in a normal project of just really scrutinizing that a little bit more. So I think this also highlights that, you know, that ongoing discussion with our team is, you know, how do we view those, and are they necessary in contrast to, you know, the excuse me, the necessity of the pilot itself. So
we had quite a discussion on this subject at the Finance Committee, and I guess basically our thought at that point was that pending the legal recommendations, that if we could move forward with the pilot and without any retroactive sales tax, that was where we felt we would be going. So I guess that's my feeling on it, that as long as we can eliminate the past purchases sales tax, I guess I'm good with moving forward with it.
Yeah, and as far as process goes with these, we have to put these applications through the same process that we're doing right now with the level applications. So we'll review the application at our next finance committee meeting, and we can make some decisions from there. But just want to thank Chris and Joe for all their work on researching this. And, you know, there are a couple of things, I say a couple lately, with, you know, this company that they've had to look into for us. So thank you, Chris, for helping us through this process.
No worries. And I had 8:30 on my calendar for this meeting, so shame on me. Shame on me.
Sorry about that.
No, that's me.
Any other questions in regard to Martinsburg?
Brittany, just for clarification, when you say we're going to put it through the same process, does that mean that we're going to do, you know, the soil and water and all of those steps as well, even though they're over 50%? It will go through the exact same process.
Yeah.
Yes, where we're currently at is I completed an initial review of the application once we got the kind of go ahead from Chris and Hutchins Russ to make sure it was complete. There were a couple things that they're using our old application form that were a little fuzzy. I asked for clarification on those just the other day. And so once they get those clarifications back to me, and I have the map already, so I'll shoot that over to Soil and Water in the meantime, and we should be on track for getting it on the Finance Committee agenda this month.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Chris, you're more than welcome to stay, or you can hop off.
Yeah, I'll drop off. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
No worries.
Morning, Jerry. How are you?
Good morning.
So Jerry, we worked a little backwards today because we had legal counsel joining us this morning. So we took care of some of the items for approval and the related discussion with the legal counsel first. And now we're moving into the rest of the agenda, which would be start with the director's report.
All right. Thank you for that update, Joe. And I apologize for being late, but I continue to have the conflict with Medical Staff Executive Committee. So I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Jerry. Okay, referring to Executive Director's report. And foremost, I would like to say that we appreciate the board for going through this learning process together with solar and pilots in our new UTAP. It's been really great to see us put our new policy into play. It really just gives us a sense of clarity, like Cheyenne said. But definitely, if you guys continue to have questions or need clarification on any of these projects, please do not hesitate to reach out. Because like I said, it's a learning process for all of us, and solar just continues to change on the state level, it seems like, every day. So again, thank you guys for your persistence. In regard to my executive director's report, just want to highlight a few things and a few highlights from last month. Yesterday, Jenna did send out our 2020 annual report. So please definitely take some time to take a look through that report. We've made some enhancements to it. We've added new information. I want to thank Jenna for designing it and putting it together. It's a lot of information to put together in one packet. And thank you to Shai for putting together some of the pilot information that we kind of left out in the past and didn't really highlight, but looking at, some of the jobs retained, jobs created, and the community investment from the current pilot projects that we have in place is really important. And I think the whole report just shows the impact that our organization is having on our communities. So definitely take a look at that when you have a chance. This past week, we, Cheyenne, myself, and Jenna, we are going through the Bridges Out of Poverty training. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Bridges Out of Poverty. It's essentially a training to educate us on people living in poverty and how policies and the decisions that we middle class people make that really enable and affect people living in poverty in our communities. It's been a really eye-opening training. And, one of our priorities that we talked about in regard to our strategic plan is focusing on, working with the people who, may be living in poverty, who don't have jobs, and connecting them with the jobs that are available in the community. I think what we're really finding out is that it's the businesses that we really need to work with to educate them on people living in poverty and how it is such a different culture than people living in the middle class or the wealthy class. So it's been a really eye-opening training. We've been doing it every afternoon this past week. And we really hope, first, I encourage all of you guys to go through that if you ever get that opportunity. But we hope to take some of the concepts that we've learned and really think about them in how we do economic development in the community. So that's been really interesting. Cheyenne and I, and speaking of pilots, we've been working through some new pilot processes and policies. We're going to be presenting at our governance committee meeting this coming month some new ways to evaluate projects, our pilot projects. Again, just really focusing on our processes, providing clarity in how we evaluate any of the pilot projects that we take on. So we're really excited to implement those. And then lastly, just an update on the Tug Hill Snowmobile Economic Impact Study. As of the end of last week, there were approximately 1,000 surveys completed between electronic and in person. So I still need to get an update from this past weekend. JCC students have been out in the Tug Hill region on the weekends doing in-person surveys. And of course, we have the electronic survey open until the end of March. So some really positive feedback from JCC and all of the marketing efforts that each of the counties have engaged in to really get this survey out there. Any questions? Comments?
Not a question, Brittany, just going back to Bridges Out of Poverty. I have some familiarity with that program, and so I'm appreciative that you all are taking part in that program. It really will require a fundamental rethinking. Over the country, we've heard a lot about systemic racism, and one could argue that there are some systemic challenges that continue to perpetuate poverty, and how those of us more fortunate through, I think, unintended actions, language, words, expectations, continue to facilitate this sort of systemic poverty in our communities. And I do believe there's hope, and that the rising tide will lift all ships, and that can happen if there's a greater appreciation without judgment of the challenges those who are in poverty face every day. And so I just want to compliment both of you for being part of the program. And it may be worthwhile to give us updates as a group on some of the things that you're learning, and perhaps some of the changes that we should seriously consider within our own organization and the relationships that we build, outside the LCIDA. So just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting to think about, like, so if all of you can picture downtown Louisville, for example, and think about the stores or retail operations that are located in downtown Louisville that keep our communities in poverty. Dollar General, we now have 2 smoke shops in downtown Louisville. We have a nearby liquor store. We have a rent-to-own operation as well. And those, through studies time and time again have proven that, those are the types of operations that kind of keep communities in poverty. So, and just thinking about zoning and policies and how we operate as institutions and communities and individuals, you're right, Jerry, it's a huge shift in thinking, but I think we can all be hopeful and just continue to put the message out there and continue to have people to think in this different way. It's hopeful.
All right, thank you for that. So moving on to correspondence.
Yes, so we provided you with a email from Christine Nakano, our strategic planning consultant. And this was from our last month's e-newsletter that Jenna sent out, and just wanted to share her great comments on our videos and how we operate as a team. So we thought that was a good thing to share with the board. And then second, we added this yesterday. So Darlene attended the Town of Denmark board meeting. When was it? This week?
It was actually February.
Oh, in February. Okay. And Roxanne Hurlbert, she has been on a huge push to get broadband, especially in the Town of Denmark. Darlene and I are both residents of the Town of Denmark and can attest to the complete lack of internet providers in that area. So when Darlene attended the town meeting, there was correspondence from Roxanne and her efforts to talk to any and every elected official to get broadband to that area. And Darlene told the board that she would bring this up at the IDA board meeting. So Darlene, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So actually, just to clarify, I was attending as a resident of the Town of Denmark, attending the meeting. I regularly do. And actually, they kind of broke meeting and asked me the question. They understood that I do serve on the board, on the IDA board, and asked that could I take this to our meeting? Could I put it on our agenda? And I think it's more for informational purposes than for any sort of necessary immediate action. But I think the more that we understand the efforts and the challenges of the residents of the county, I think it's beneficial to share it. So I did share the actual correspondence that she had sent to the board, but then also in our chat when the meeting started, I also, late yesterday, she was able to provide me with a timeline. So I did, and I can send that to you for, just for the record of the packet, or you can take it from there. But essentially, she has done an amazing job of documenting every communication in the various agencies, as Brittany mentioned, that she's reached out to. It is a true challenge, and I've spent a lot of time researching what other areas of the state and country have done to try to meet this challenge. I've read countless articles of the inequity and how this affects not just students, families, but obviously businesses and growth in a community. So I don't think I am necessarily, submitting this for action. I'm submitting it for awareness and just seeking thoughts and ideas of next steps. And I think right now we're kind of in a bit of a holding pattern with the DANK survey. If I remember correctly, April was around the time frame that they hope to have some sort of report from that. Is that or Joe?
Yeah, I feel like I heard within the next few weeks, but the guy, the CEO of the company who is writing the report has been sick, so I think it was kind of delayed a little bit. But
I mean,
yeah,
I think
back to-
one of the points that I took from my conversations with Roxanne is because it just kind of reiterated what I was going through trying to seek internet access at our home. We're 2/10 of a mile from where internet access exists. And we're quoted at around $10,800 to bring that to our home. In the documentation that she provided in the Spectrum Timeline document that I shared, what was interesting is there's not the oversight in this process that I believe needs to exist. So in other words, Charter Communications can say that they'll come out and do a site evaluation or a construction evaluation, and to one person's house that is, let's say, 4/10 of a mile in, and I don't have the document right open in front of me right now, but I'm using this as an example. It's not the exact distance or anything, but 4/10 of a mile in is $80,000. Okay. Then they'll do a site evaluation to the house that may be 1/10 of a mile from there, but that quote is for the entire length to that point. So it is not building upon, in other words, they're going to make that money for every chunk as far in as they go. Or that's what they're quoting. I'm not saying they're going to make it because there is not an intent to do so. And what they are identifying is the challenge of the lease of the pole space. And I think that, I don't fully understand how some areas of our county and beyond our county throughout the state, some areas are able to have internet that have lower density, population density than others. There are areas of our state that literally are remote, that have this, and I don't understand what I seek to understand better is this pole leasing concept of National Grid owns the poles, and this is what they're going to charge for every pole that they put their, cable, their access on. So, yeah, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but I want to bring it to our attention because, it is one of our priorities in our strategic plan to seek, connectivity for our residents and for our businesses. So I think I'm, just wanted to present it with thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for that. And certainly over the last year, it's highlighted that this can't come fast enough, for sure, right? And families have been struggling with it for the last year. And so I do, and Larry's on if he has anything comments. I do know in discussions with Ryan, I mean, there's real interest in the county level of really taking the momentum that's being created by the pandemic and this study with DANK and trying to really take that momentum and keep it going. So I think it's the efforts that you've shared here and are being documented are good, and it's all part of that process to keep the momentum going. And I think, I don't want to put words in Jerry's mouth, but I believe a month or so ago he had mentioned that this, the kind of public good side of good internet, and what's the justification for public investment versus private. And this certainly, to me, continues to highlight that this really is something that all citizens need access to, right? Not that kind of goes above and beyond the the corporate model. So, yeah, I don't know, Larry, do you have anything to add?
I would just say that it's on our radar. We're well aware of the problem, waiting for the DANK study to, to try to give us a path going forward. It's not only, there's a lot of issues. You point out the issue of pole police. There's also an issue with New York State Department of Transportation charging for access and state right-of-ways. So, there's a lot of contradiction in the state's position that they're trying to move broadband forward. They rely on maps from Charter and Frontier and other areas that show show on a state level that these areas are serviced when in actuality they're not. So we're aware of it, and it's one of our priorities is to try to figure out some way of moving this thing forward. So we're basically waiting for the DANK study as everyone else is at this point.
Hey, I've got a question. Has anybody looked into Starlink at all? Is it available in our area?
I don't know what Starlink is. I assume it's Goggin.
Larry, it's internet via satellite by Elon Musk's company, and I know they had started last year, and I know they've already got like 10,000 subscribers. So it's irrelevant of location as far as the fact that it's from a satellite. But I don't know if we were under that coverage map yet or not.
Well, Hughes Network is the provider that is being subsidized in our area. The problem with satellite is that they it's $49 a month, all within the parameters of under $60, but there's a data cap on it. And I think with respect to Hughes, it's 25 megabytes per month, and then you have to pay an additional charge over that. So that's the main barrier to satellite, and I'm not sure how that whether the one that you mentioned has a data cap or not, but that's been our experience with Hughes anyway.
Okay, gotcha. I'll look into seeing if Starlink is available in any capacity.
Okay.
The other option that is available, that is just a challenge in terms of I guess I would call it not necessarily access, but is cellular internet is stable in many areas, depending on the carrier and where their signals are. But it is that data cap that really prohibits people from using it in a way that a business or for educational purposes, it's so limited in the data caps on those. So I just question, as we are seeking to meet those last mile service, how can that be subsidized in such a way, or I think there are so many people, obviously this is going to come out of the study, but there are so many people that are willing to pay the money necessary for that unlimited access, but there is literally no plans that do provide that for those rural remote areas without, the spectrum or the frontier. So thank you. I appreciate the time on the agenda just to discuss it, and look forward to hopefully some movement in that direction soon.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Darlene.
All right, yeah, I think this is going to be an important ongoing discussion. And as any of you hear any, new information, I think, it was great that Darlene had this contact and this update. And I think any updates like this, maybe not, even just emails in between meetings and stuff, if the more we can be aware of and share with the county, the better. All right, so moving on to committee reports. Tom, we already kind of discussed a fair amount of the discussion last month. Did you have anything else to add?
I think I covered most of it in piecemeal, but maybe for Jerry's sake, I would just review a couple of things. We discussed the Lowville light energy project with and sort of had a temporary approval of a pilot for the Lowville solar project, and we spent a lot of time discussing the Martinsburg situation at our meeting, and I think our legal advice is probably where we should be going on that. So those were the main discussion items at our committee meeting, and Cheyenne went over the financials. One of the big things in the financials was that we had a lot of money moving in and out for the pilot. So I guess those were the highlights that I had figured on reporting, and we pretty much discussed them all earlier. So unless somebody has a question, why, that would be what I would have for a report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Tom or the rest of the group? Okay, so there was some items for discussion, and actually the U.S. light energy we addressed when we had legal counsel on the meeting. So that one's covered, but there's 3 other updates there. If, I don't know who's going to tackle those. But.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. So just an update first on the Lionsdale request for expressions of interest process. We just put out a press release this past Monday. We have the RFI packet all set. We created a separate web page on the property and the project and the process that we're engaging in. And so far, we've been able to track who's been downloading the packet, who's interested in the property. So far, since Monday, we've had 6 downloads of the packet. We've had 1 letter of interest submitted. So this is someone who's been interested in the property. And we have 1 showing scheduled for Tuesday, I think Monday or Tuesday. So just in 4 days, it's gotten a lot of attention. 7 News is actually doing a story on that property and the Lions Falls Mill property on Monday. We have a couple of regional publications and media outlets who are also covering this property in our request for developers and businesses, anyone who might be interested in developing that property. So we're making good progress, and I will be sure to send you all the webpage just so you guys are aware of where it's located on our website. Any questions on Lionsdale?
I'd like to make a comment. You have a map on there.
Yep.
That sort of circles the distances. A similar map to that, some 60 years ago, got the craft plant in Lowville.
Really?
Because that I was a lot younger then, but it was pointed out to the Kraft company that within the 10 and 20 mile radius, they could have a supply of milk to run that plant. And
Yeah.
that was the main reason that that plant is in Lowell now.
That's great.
So maybe that map will bring someone else in.
Let's hope so. Okay. All right, moving on, just a couple of educational pieces. I wanted Jenna to go over general marketing updates for 2020. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Lions Falls Mill project, which is a huge community development project, just so you guys are aware of the history and where we're at today. We talk a lot about it and grants and money coming in and out, but if you haven't been on the board for 5 years, you know, like Joe, you wouldn't really understand where we're at with that project. So I'll have Jenna go ahead with some marketing updates.
Thanks, Brittany. Just going to be quick and go through some of the highlights that we put in the annual report. I'll get right into it. If anybody has questions, let me know. So our social media following year over year continues to grow. Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, the Naturally Lewis brand has been around for 5 years. 5 years. So as you'll see, year over year, we continue to grow in social media following. Facebook is up 1,600 followers from 2019, which was great. Instagram up over 600 and LinkedIn up over 150. And we actually just broke 1,000 followers on Instagram last month. So throughout 2021, this is a priority for us to continue that growth. And this comes from just consistently posting, trying new things. And I just wanted to get into a little bit of detail on each of these to show you what is popular or what has been popular across each of the platforms. So Facebook, our top post of 2020 was actually announcing a new business opening in Lewis County, the barn at Windy Hollow, which was kind of like under the radar. We went out, Brittany and I, to meet with them. It's going to be a great event space once they're able to have events over 50, and which is looking up in the last couple of weeks. But with this, take note of the bottom corner here. We have over 23,000 people were reached, and almost 8,000 people actually clicked on it or liked, shared, or commented. So that was the most popular for Facebook, which shows that our business community is very active on Facebook. On Instagram, this little graphic shows the top 9 posts from 2020. We received over 4,000 likes on all of our posts in 2020. The top post ranked in the recreation category. And people also like to see our faces, which you'll see check presentation and a staff outing on there as well. But overall recreation ranked in the top for Instagram. And then LinkedIn, of course, it's a professional platform. So it's not surprising that our top post was announcing the 20 under 40 representatives for Lewis County. And that received over 1,000 impressions, a share, 40 reactions, which is great for LinkedIn. We are still trying to grow this and being very selective of what we put on LinkedIn as well. So trying to relate it to the professionals in the professional community. So a lot more of our press releases go on LinkedIn rather than our recreational posts. So it's very strategic. In 2020, we also launched our new video series, which you guys have seen. And we're really starting to push our YouTube channel. So this was new in 2020. Throughout 2020, we had almost 200 views of those videos, and that's growing daily. On Facebook, we've actually received, I would say 20,000 views between the 3 videos so far. So that continues to grow. And we're also exploring different advertising avenues for those videos as well. Paid advertisements on YouTube and through some other avenues. So our website had over 30,000 page views. And not surprising, the COVID-19 guidance for employers was our most active page in 2020. But it also demonstrates that we were putting the right information out there to our business community when they needed it most. So over 1,500 views or visits to the COVID-19 guidance page in 2020. And lastly, just a few more facts to share. We were featured in over 20 local regional publications. And that is really due to putting out press releases, I would say. We did over 25 press releases in 2020, and when we continue to do, I would say 1 to 2 press releases a month in 2021, which really gets us into those publications and recognized by local media. Our radio segment continues to get traction, Naturally Lewis moving Lewis County forward, and that is every 3rd Thursday of the month. We are on the Moose for a 2-minute segment, kind of talking about just what's going on in our organization. And we're continuing to mix that up a little bit. You might hear from me, you might hear from Brittany, or we might be able to get Cheyenne on there to talk about some things. We'll see. But trying to mix that up a little bit too, and keep the public notified, because a lot of people do use the radio to get their news. And
I think I may have accidentally given them some sound bites about Lionsdale yesterday.
Yeah, perfect. And then lastly, our email newsletter, which continues to grow. We sent out 44 emails last year between newsletters and just updates. A lot of those were COVID related in 2020. Our subscriber list actually reached over 600 in the beginning of 2021. So we're continuing to grow that list as well. There is a place to sign up on our website for that. And if you would like to share it with your colleagues, you can forward it to them and they can subscribe through your email as well. So just some quick updates. We're always looking for new ways to get information out to the community. And the numbers are kind of interesting to share. So if you have any questions, let me know, but thank you for the time.
Any questions or comments for Jenna?
Good job.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll say Jenna has taken the marketing to the next level. Just a fresh sense of like graphic design and how things look and messaging that we put out to the community, and it's working. And I had a random dream one night that she told me that she hated doing press releases, and don't know why I'm dreaming about that, but Jenna has been really great about doing press releases, and it's working. I mean, we're getting more and more information out to the community. More and more people are seeing what we're doing and the successes that we're having. So that's going to be a priority, is to just continue to get that information out there.
I think it's just there's so many synergies, because we're not just marketing our organization, right? But it's marketing all the good things going on in the area. And a lot of the, we're fortunate to be involved in a lot of these initiatives for the area, but it's there's so many synergies between what having this avenue to get information out. And I think when we look at even stuff like the JCC survey that maybe some of you saw presented the other night at the county board meeting. I mean, people, despite a lot of challenges, especially in the last year, people are generally positive about things in our county. And I think our the abilities to highlight this and what we're doing definitely help build that momentum. So so we can keep people energized and going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. All right. One last, just a little bit of education for you guys. Going back to the survey you filled out, you wanted to learn more about community development projects. So I thought this was a good time to share about the Lions Falls Mill Site Revitalization Project and where we're at and how we are involved. So how many, I know like Joe is aware of our involvement, but I mean, in general, how many of you like have any idea what's happening on that site, or simply just don't know? We talk about it in our financials, but we haven't really gone into detail as to, you know, what the specific grant is for.
I've been following it for the whole last 15 years, so.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, Brett, I don't know category.
Okay. All right. So Jenny, you can go to the next slide. So a little bit of history of the Lions Falls Mill project. So the Lions Falls Pulp and Paper company was located right where the Black and the Moose Rivers meet in the village of Lions Falls. That mill closed in 2001. Approximately 200 jobs were lost. And if you could imagine just the downhill spiral effect that it had on downtown Lions Falls, it was a thriving little village, lots of businesses and restaurants. You know, the mill essentially supported, and the factory workers, they supported the village and the amount of people that were living in Lions Falls and the businesses that were located in Lions Falls. So when the mill closed, it really was just a downhill spiral effect for the entire village. The LCDC, Lewis County Development Corporation, they acquired the property in 2011. And since then, it has been essentially a 10-year project to demolish and go through the hazardous abatement removal process for all of those old buildings. Essentially, those buildings became very, they were, you know, blighted and unsafe and really a health hazard for the community. So something needed to be done to take those buildings down. That project has been a 4-phase project, and that's largely due to, you know, funding. We had to tap into a lot of different types of funding sources and a lot of different grants, and it just made sense to split up the demolition project into 4 different phases. And we're at the point where we are like 99.9% complete with the final phase of demolition. And Larry has been a part of this project as the president of the LCDC, as a business owner in Lions Falls and a resident of Lions Falls. He can attest to the amount of work that has gone in and the persistence to just continue to get this project done. Next slide. So as far as funding sources and partners, it was an approximately $6 million project between the 4 phases. And like I said, the funding sources came from a lot of different places, public and private, New York State, Empire State Development, and their general economic development grants, and their Restore New York grants contributed to this project. National Grid has contributed. Kruger Hydro, who is the hydro facility, the owner of the hydro right at that site, has put in some funds. LCDC, IDA, county funds have all contributed to this project. And I'm probably missing partners from over the past 10 years, but really the entities that have led this are the Village of Lions Falls, the Development Authority of the North Country, DANK. They've been like our primary engineer and partner with this project. The LCDC and the IDA and the county have all been pushing to get this project done. So one of the unique things about this project is that it fell under a brownfield opportunity area. So we applied for a grant back, I don't even know what year it was, with the Department of State to, through their brownfield Opportunity Area Program to receive funds and go through the studies, not just for the mill site, but for the village as a whole. And the goals of that BOA process, and I guess the results from it, would be comprehensive land use and assessments taking place, and economic and market trends analysis. You know, what types of businesses would work in Lions Falls, identification of all BOA sites with reuse potential, and recommendations for future actions to revitalize the community. So as a part of the BOA study, we have files and files and files of all sorts of studies through this process. They came up with 20 strategic sites and actions to take to, and this goes from, you know, the mill site, how do we revitalize the mill site, what could be good there, to the old train depot building, to the old Agway building, to the old Lions Falls School building, as well as, you know, some community enhancements, you know, recreational enhancements, waterfront enhancements, things like that. So this drawing, this rendering at the bottom of the page or bottom of the screen is just a sample, you know, what could be at the mill site. The left part there is High Falls and the current hydro facility. And this concept was like a hotel and condo type concept with the waterfront completely revitalized to be used by the community. Next page. So where are we at now? How are we involved in this process? So we at the IDA took the lead on forming an ad hoc committee with our first meeting back in December. We formed a committee with community members and business owners to help guide our priorities for the site. We really wanted to bring the community in to have them tell us what they want for their community, so that it really was a ground up approach to how we move forward with the property. So just a few highlights. The demolition is done. We do plan to schedule a ribbon cutting event in late spring, early summer with all of the partners. We want to unveil a new name for the site, a new sign for the site, and really just put the past behind us and really celebrate the future and the vision for that property. A part of the BOA project, they actually came up with a whole new brand for Lions Falls called Lions Falls Connects. So we're working with the village and assisting them with some marketing efforts. We do have a Lions Falls Connects page on our website, and we do plan to build out other community web pages on our website as well. But working with the mayor and some volunteers from the community to get their social media up and running to promote the businesses, the recreation, the opportunities at the mill site and other sites within the village as well. Next steps for us is to look into hiring an engineer to help us with the mill property. We really can't move forward with anything on the site without knowing what is needed for infrastructure to support any redevelopment initiatives. There's a number of things that need to be addressed on the site. For example, the waterfront. How can we develop the waterfront on the site? There's kind of a big cliff right in the middle of the site. So how do we address this big cliff that's in the middle of the site? Traffic patterns. How do we make it a pedestrian friendly and truck friendly site? So we will actually be putting together a letter with scope of services that we will be sending out to engineers to receive proposals on who could help us with that. And then last priority is to help Black River Valley Natural expand. So they are the first tenant on the site and the only existing building that was left with the demolition. And they are growing and expanding capacity and have some really great plans for the future. So again, going back to the engineer, what are the infrastructure needs? What are the building needs? and how can we just continue to assist James and Bethany to expand their business. So that is in a nutshell where we're at with that project. Again, I commend Larry and Eric Verkler and the entire LCDC board and all of the partners. It's been 10 years of craziness, and it's finally come to an end, the demolition. We can finally start to look forward and see the potential of that site. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just curious, how high or how, like, what's the height of this cliff? Like, could it be used in any way for recreational purposes, like rock climbing with, you know, like a tourist attraction where people who indulge in these activities can go and try that stuff out?
I mean, potentially, but the cliff is like, it's because the actual mill, the buildings from the mill were on different levels. So as the buildings were taken down, like there's just various levels on the site that are now empty and unsafe really to walk on. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we could build a rock climbing wall there. There's
just thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity and potential for the site.
I did just check my schedule. I'm completely available for the ribbon cutting, so let me know.
Sounds good.
I think that was a great overview, Brittany, and I think we can't. There's no way to overstate what the LCDC did here with basically, even not to be dramatic, but working with nothing. I mean, sometimes it was working with less than nothing, other than a will to keep it going. And so now we have an opportunity, and it's just an interesting historical thing that you have this beautiful waterfall, and 100+ years ago that we weren't thinking about the tourism attractions of that, right? We were thinking about the functional use of it, as for water power, and that's why these mills are located here. And now, as we think about our current needs, we obviously have rethought where we site our industrial manufacturing and stuff, and it's not necessarily in these areas, right? And it's an opportunity to return this to the village and make it an economic driver in another way. So,
right.
Yeah, I think the other takeaway is just the not letting time be the enemy, and staying the course, being focused, working through the challenges, and having the discipline of commitment. This is 10 years worth of work, and many people have not given up. So it's a real testament that though time can be a challenge, but by staying the course, something meaningful is coming back. And so I just want to thank the team for not losing that sense of purpose, vision, and staying the course.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions, comments?
all right. So, great meeting today, everyone. Some very good input and some nice updates. So thank you. And just draw your attention to the schedule of meetings for the next month. And with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Motion by Darlene, second by Jerry. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.